Hello everybody! So in this video, I'm going to be doing my review for Monarch Legacy of Monsters Episode 7. And let me just say, I was a little bit worried about this episode because I knew this episode was going to be a May episode. And if you guys couldn't really tell, I don't really like May that much as a character. But somehow they actually made May likable in this episode and I actually care for her. May was amazing in this episode, but we'll get more into that later on. Yet again, want to give a quick spoiler warning alert for anyone who doesn't want to be spoiled or hasn't watched the episode, because let me just say, there's actually quite a lot of important things in this episode. But if you're still watching, then let's get right into this. So at the end of episode 6, they finally found their dad, but then Godzilla rose up out of the ground and ruined everything. May and Kate got into an argument, but they all went to the airport. And now in this episode, we find out that Tim, which was in the helicopter that went down after hitting Godzilla's dorsal plate, is actually still alive, but all of his other crewmates died. And let me just say this here, I actually liked him a lot in this episode. I think he was very likable, he was very kind, and he was acting very, very smart. But by the time they get to the airport, they found out that May is missing, and she has been kidnapped. We get some flashbacks to May's personal life back, like I think 2 years ago, whatever, where she was working for this woman, for this organization. I'll get more into that later. But then Tim finally ends up meeting up with Kate and Kentaro. Tim tells them that Monarch wasn't the one that kidnapped Kate, so now the main characters are like, what? And what organization or who could have done this? And then we get some flashback revealing that May's name isn't actually May. To be honest, I don't remember what it actually is. I would have to look it up. But we find out that she's been changing her identity because she's been running away from this organization that works with cybernetics. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? But even just the flashback scenes where we're seeing May just living kind of like a normal life, and then she gets this job and tries to hack into their system to stop this whole thing. And even the way how May was acting, how she wasn't this mean, sassy person who's like, ugh. She was actually just being nice, and she was like crying and acting all sad. We also do see May's family, and that was very awesome to see because we see that her family truly does care about May and doesn't even know what's going on with her. We also find out that Shaw and his team are taking over Monarch Outpost 88, I'm pretty sure. And they're stealing lots of bombs, which is going to come in later at the end of the episode. But finally, Kate and Kentaro end up finding May again, but she doesn't want to leave. Eventually, they do get her to leave, and May finally goes back to her family and meets them. And then near the end of the episode, we find out that the organization that May was working for was actually Apex. If that name sounds familiar, yes, Apex is the organization from Godzilla vs. Kong, the same ones that built Mechagodzilla. There even was a scene where May was looking through the computers and we saw this video of these monkeys being tested on, and they had these helmets on, almost like a Neuralink. Which, as we know, that's how Mechagodzilla was piloted in Godzilla vs. Kong. So that's just very awesome to know that they've been working on this whole entire Mechagodzilla project ever since 2015. And since we know Godzilla vs. Kong takes place in 2024, even though the movie came out 2021, it takes place 2024, that means they have been working on Mechagodzilla for around 9 years. Which makes this whole thing a lot more realistic, honestly. It's not like Godzilla vs. Kong where Mechagodzilla just came out of nowhere and all of a sudden, King of the Monsters, we had this, kind of basic technology, nothing too crazy. And then in Godzilla vs. Kong, we have this crazy technology just out of nowhere. But now we finally know they've been working on this technology since 2015, right after the events of 2014. So it just makes it a lot more realistic. And even this evil boss lady actually ended up mentioning Mechagodzilla, where she said something like, we need to make something that's as big as Godzilla that can actually walk. And right when I heard that, I was like, oh my god, it's Mechagodzilla. And also, yeah, they mentioned water. But overall, if I have to be honest, this episode is probably the best character episode. every character I actually liked a lot more than in the previous episodes, especially May. I will say, Kentaro's still acting a little bit strange. His acting here was a little bit off. He just kind of had the same face. He was like, yeah, I don't want to find my dad, but come on, we gotta go find May. That's kind of how he was acting. I thought his acting could have been a little bit better here, but it's fine. And Kate was alright as well. But May was definitely the star of this episode. She was really good in this episode, and finally, this episode finally made me actually like May and actually care for her. And Tim was just a really cool dude. But at the very end of the episode, we find out that Shaw is back in Alaska at this glowing hole in the ground, which I still think is a hollow earth portal. They set bombs all around it, but right before they detonate it, the Frostvar comes out of the snow and launches at them, but then I'm pretty sure he gets blown up and dies. R.I.P. Frostvark. But they successfully end up blowing up this hole, and it creates this giant vortex tornado thing that sucks up a whole bunch of stuff. It's crazy looking. But by the end, it seems like they ended up closing up that hollow earth portal. And I know this episode makes Shaw feel like a villain here, but when you really think about it, what he's doing is actually a good thing. He's closing up these hollow earth portals so no other crazy monsters can come through them to the surface. Assuming that's what he's doing here. They never explain it in the episode. But my goodness, I really enjoyed this episode. I'll give it a solid 8 out of 10 to be honest. Even though there was no Godzilla in the episode, this was one of the times where I'm fine with there being no Godzilla. Even though at the end of episode 6, Godzilla just kind of walked off into the distance and we still don't know where he's going, but I'm sure we'll find out later in future episodes. We got 3 episodes left, and now I am really excited because we are really picking up with the story, and I can't wait to see where it all ends at. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As you can tell, I actually really enjoyed this episode. I love the characters in this episode, and I really hope they continue this amazing character story in the future episodes, while still maintaining that awesome Monarch and monster story. But I hope you guys enjoy, and that's gonna be it. Have a great day, guys, and have a great Christmas as well.